What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with what's next for Islam Makhachev after UFC 302 win. Islam Makhachev was tested much harder than most people expected against Dustin Poirier tonight. But the lightweight champ showed once again that he's one of the baddest beings in this galaxy. Early on, it looked like Makhachev could cruise to a quick victory as he clipped Poirier and then took him down. For the remainder of the round, Poirier was on the defensive. But the Diamond battled through, having Makhachev on his back for several minutes. As the fight progressed, Poirier defended more takedowns, and he tagged Makhachev with shots of his own more frequently. In round 4, he opened up Makhachev with a slicing elbow that left the champ a bloody mess. But before Poirier had any more time to pull off the upset in round 5, Makhachev caught him with a nasty-looking Darce choke that momentarily put the Diamond out. Here's Khabib's immediate reaction to Islam winning at UFC 302.
To be honest, today Islam grew a lot. You don't even understand. When you go deep like today, it's mean it show people and you understand your body and your things inside, how deep you can go even more. You know, there is more place. You know, we sometimes, not sometimes, all the time people underestimate they self. You know, our body, our soul, we can go more deeper than like 5 rounds, 10 rounds, doesn't matter. You just have to find this. You just have to be relaxed and find this way. You know, the way how you have to go, how you can go deep. You know, it was very deep fight.
After the thrilling fight, Makhachev relayed once again that he wants to battle for the welterweight title. Could the UFC go that route? Maybe, but chances are he'll need to get by Arman Tsarukyan once again before that happens. After all, Tsarukyan has gone 9-1 since their first clash in 2019. Dana White in the post-fight press conference confirmed that he wants Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan next. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fight to make. I mean, that's the fight. That's the fight everybody wants to see. That's the fight that needs to happen. You know, when we were talking earlier about him moving up, I mean, if I was him, I wouldn't even think about moving up till he had that fight. But I don't know about having that fight in Russia. I don't know where we would do it.
Arman Tsarukyan also reacted to the fight by saying, "Congrats to Islam, but don't try to run away to another division. You've only defended your title once against a real lightweight, and I'm next in line." And what about Poirier? Well, after the bout, the legend acknowledged that it could be curtains on his storied career. Since Poirier stopped short of announcing his retirement, however, you never know. What if Nate Diaz returns to the UFC? Could we see that super fight? Sean Strickland versus Paulo Costa recap. Sean Strickland took a big step towards locking up another crack at the middleweight crown tonight, but the outspoken fighter incurred a pretty decent scare, courtesy of one judge. Strickland took on the always tough Paulo Costa in the co-headliner. Early on into the fight, it looked like Costa's leg kicks could play a pivotal role, as he punished Strickland's lead leg. So much so, Strickland temporarily switched to southpaw. But as the fight wore on, Strickland started to check the kicks and countered well with front kicks and punches. Strickland pressured constantly, as per usual, and over the remaining rounds, he outscored Costa. After 5 rounds, it seemed pretty clear that Strickland had won, although one judge, as noted, scored it for Bohachinia. Dana White wasn't happy with this judge and said this.
It wasn't weird, it was nuts is what it was. It's insane. That guy should never ref a big fight again. They should kick him back down to the minor leagues and let him work on his judging. It's unbelievable. I mean, how anybody who isn't an absolute lunatic could call that fight a split decision. I don't even know what to say about that. It's insane. That guy shouldn't be judging big fights.
Well, after the fight, not surprisingly, Strickland called for a title shot. But will he get it? That's a big question. The expectation is that the current champion, Dricus du Plessis, will face former champ Israel Adesanya later this year. Since Strickland narrowly lost to du Plessis, and because he beat Izzy, it would seem likely that he's next in line. Strickland also mentioned during his post-fight press conference that he's willing to wait for a title shot.
I'm gonna wait. I paid my dues, man. I paid my dues. I got robbed in Canada, no offense. But I got robbed there, dude. We all know I got robbed. At least Dricus doesn't back up. So I'm gonna sit in the gym and I'm gonna be a team player and I'm gonna wait, and I'm gonna wait until they say, Sean, go beat this man.
How long would you be willing to wait for a title shot?
As long as it takes, as long as it takes. I want the gold, dude. I want the gold. When you're fighting these top 10 motherfuckers, dude, you're only one slip and dodge away from being knocked out. I paid my penance. I did what we did. I went and fought Costa. I didn't want to. I did it. Give me the title shot. I beat Izzy, and that motherfucker gets a title shot.
But don't forget that Khamzat Chimaev is set to fight Robert Whittaker on June 22nd. So if Boers can take out Bobby Knuckles in electrifying fashion, he could get tapped for a title shot next. After all, Whittaker is one of the greatest middleweights ever, and Chimaev is one of the fastest rising commodities in the game. Further, recently, Strickland spoke out about fighter pay, and that may not sit well with UFC brass. While talking to Daniel Cormier, he relayed,
But no, just doing the fucking right things, man. Like, the UFC doesn't do the right things. It doesn't do the right things. It doesn't do the right things with most of their rosters. Like, if you go look at, what these the guys that run the UFC, what they're making to what guys get paid is dude. The UFC does not do the right thing. And unless you hold them at gunpoint, they ain't gonna do it.
But what do you think? Has Strickland locked up another title fight? Ian Garry not interested in Michael Venom Page fight. Ian Machado Garry has signed a contract to throw hands with Michael Venom Page at UFC 303. So you would think that indicates the rising star wants to battle the Bellator vet, at least on some level, right? Well, think again. Yes, after extensive talk and speculation regarding who Garry will fight next, it was eventually announced he'll face Page at the June 29th card. The announcement finally came after Garry and Colby Covington feuded online and through the media for weeks. But for now at least, the two won't be fighting anytime soon. Well, more recently, Garry spoke with Lucky Block Casino, and when asked about fighting MVP, the Irish fighter made it clear the fight is far, far from his preferred choice.
I'm not remotely interested in fight MVP. I'm not gonna lie. Not remotely interested. Okay. I have said this for so long. I've only won in my career. I'm undefeated. I've done everything I said I'm gonna do against everybody I said I was gonna do it against. I'm looking for a top 5 opponent, but there's no one available above me to fight me. There's literally no one available above me to fight. Yeah. So this is the single first position I've ever been put in where there's no one above me and there's only people below me. So now I have no choice if I want to fight, but to look down and go, who is the biggest name? Who is the biggest test that the UFC fans and the UFC operations want to see me go up against? If everyone's saying Michael Venom Page, well, then that's the one guy to make it happen with. But I'm not remotely interested in the fight. I believe I'm levels above him in every single way, shape, and form. And this is just an opportunity to show it, to prove it to people.
There you have it. Now, if you've been following Garry, you're probably not too surprised to hear him say this. Well, maybe you're a bit surprised to hear him say he's not remotely interested in the fight. Maybe you were expecting him to say that he isn't that interested in the scrap. It's true that when Page initially brought up fighting Garry a little while ago, the welterweight didn't seem overly enthused, but ultimately he did agree to the fight. Now, it certainly seems like if not for Garry's uber famous countryman, Conor McGregor, fighting at UFC 303, this bout wouldn't be happening. Okay, now let's look at what's next for Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland returned to the middleweight division at UFC 302, and the highlight reel fighter also returned to the win column with a gruesome victory. Holland faced rugged southpaw Michael Oleksiejczuk, and for a moment or two, things were looking pretty dicey for the Trailblazer. That's because Oleksiejczuk sent Holland to the deck with a booming left not long into the fight. But as he looked to finish the scrap from above, Holland started working for an armbar. Oleksiejczuk tried rolling out in vain, and for people who have a queasy stomach, unfortunately, the Polish fighter wouldn't tap. Holland continued to crank on the arm, and moments later, it either broke or dislocated. The fight was then finally and thankfully stopped. So, what's next for Kevin Holland? It's an interesting question, given that he was coming off back-to-back losses to welterweight contenders Jack Della Maddalena and Michael Venom Page. Might Holland decide to stay at 185 pounds for the time being and see if he can start another run at middleweight? What do you think? Sean Strickland goes off on Belal Muhammad. Sean Strickland probably isn't thinking about Belal Muhammad much this weekend, given that he just fought Paulo Costa at UFC 302 this weekend. But the former middleweight champ continues to beef with the welterweight contender. Yep, you can say that about Strickland and more than a few fighters on the UFC roster. Not long ago, Muhammad lit up Strickland for his jab-heavy approach, and also insinuated the controversial fighter has more bark than bite. In addition, Muhammad referred to some of the emotional breakdowns Strickland has had while doing interviews. Muhammad's issues with Strickland reportedly go back to a social media exchange they had a while ago regarding Palestine, where Muhammad's parents are from. Well, ahead of UFC 302, Strickland was asked to respond to Muhammad's more recent comments, and not surprisingly, Strickland fired back and then some.
He's such a little bro. Every time I see this mother in person, I'm always like, hey, Belal Muhammad, you Miamin, like where the you're from. Let's handle it. And he puts his head down and he goes away and little twiddle thumbs gets on the twiddler and starts talking. Listen, dude, go to Palestine, go fight for your country. Get the out of here, dude, you can.
And how does Strickland see Muhammad faring against Leon Edwards at UFC 304 in July?
I think Leon's gonna start you.
The chances of these two ever throwing down in a sanctioned octagon fight are likely slim to none at this juncture, but chances are we haven't heard the last of these two verbally sparring yet. Okay, now let's turn to UFC updates. Guram Kutateladze has yet to throw down in 2024, but it looks like that's going to change this summer. Recently, MMA Orbit reported that Kutateladze announced he's going to fight at the UFC's August 3rd card in Abu Dhabi. Following that news, MMA Junkie's Farah Hanoun reported that Kutateladze will battle Abdul Karim Al-Salwadi at the upcoming event. It's going to be a pivotal fight for Kutateladze, as he's coming off consecutive losses to Damir Ismagulov and Elvis Brenner. Those defeats snapped a 9-fight winning streak for Kutateladze, which included a split decision victory over top 5 ranked lightweight contender Mateusz Gamrot. Al-Salwadi, meanwhile, will be returning to the UFC. Following a stoppage loss Loic Radzhabov this past March, the lightweight returned to the win column in May with a decision win outside of the UFC. In another interesting piece of news, Marcel Dorf is reporting that Santiago Ponzinibbio is going to fight Muslim Salikov on July 13th. Now, that's not a fight that probably is going to have casual fans buzzing or flocking to their televisions, but it's a scrap hardcore fans know shouldn't be missed. Ponzinibbio has fallen out of the welterweight rankings on account of losing 3 of his last 5 fights, but the Argentinian is rarely, if ever, in a boring fight. The same can be said for Russia's Salikov, who, like Ponzinibbio, really needs a victory after dropping his last 2 fights. And now let's discuss Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson postponed. This summer's fight schedule remains super stacked, but one of the biggest fights that was scheduled for Q3 has been postponed. Yep, that fight is the boxing match between the legendary Mike Tyson and YouTube celeb turned pugilist Jake Paul, which was booked to take place at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington on July 20th. Recently, Netflix confirmed that Tyson has been dealing with an ulcer flare-up, and as a result, the fight's been pushed back. It didn't take long for Paul to comment on the setback, but the influencer had nothing but positive things to say about Iron Mike.
I do value Mike's health first and foremost. Love that guy, I have so much respect for him, and I want Mike to be healthy. And he says he still is gonna knock me out, and I bought myself some time. So Mike is still talking shit over there. But Mike, if you want to do this, like you said, behind closed doors, behind the scenes, you've said you want to do this in Q4. You just need a little bit of time. So I'm ready whenever you are. This is too big of an opportunity. I think this fight's gonna change the world.
It also didn't take long for Paul's brother Logan to chime in on the situation. However, Logan took the opportunity to call for a scrap with Jake. Yes, as in brother versus brother. Via social media, Logan shared out this challenge. So, Mike Tyson's out? I'll step in and we can settle this once and for all, Jake. To which Jake responded with this: Mom doesn't want me to KO you, but F it. Loser has to change their last name. Now, if you would much rather see Tyson fire bombs at Jake, don't worry. Both MVP Promotions and Netflix have reported that a new date for that fight will be announced soon.
Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul is delayed. I know you're close with Mike. I guess, are you happy that they're looking out for his health in that instance? And do you even think it should be rescheduled, period, given this ulcer flare-up?
100%. Yeah, obviously I know a lot about it, but I'm not going to talk about it publicly. Yeah, you know, for the first time probably ever in my life, I have no comment on something. That's Mike's world, and you know, he gets pissed at me every time I talk about that stuff. Good for him, and they'll figure it out.
Dustin Poirier reveals sad news. After UFC 302, Dustin Poirier said at the post-fight press conference that he might have torn his ACL. If this is true, Dustin will most likely never fight in MMA again due to his age.
You kind of alluded to something maybe happened in the fight, but then you stopped yourself from sharing too much. Is there anything more you can share now?
I might have messed my ACL up against the fence in the 3rd or 4th round. Before I hit him with the switch, I don't remember what round that was. My knee and my knee bone and my shin bone, I felt slide, and then it started burning. I was telling Mike that through the fence. He thought I was complaining about something else, but I'll get that checked out. It didn't bother me getting off the stool and stuff. It hurt. Punch shattered my nose, or if it was a headbutt, because we did collide heads in the middle of the octagon. That flashed me, so I didn't feel where the pain was. I didn't know if it was my forehead or what hit, but that could have, my nose is shattered for sure. And I've had a couple nose surgeries already, and I have some cadaver bone and stuff in there, so I just hope I don't have to go through that process again, man, but I feel like the bone is not where it should be.
Top comments. Islam once again silencing the haters. Main event was Hall of Fame worthy. Can't take anything away from either of those guys, just dogs. That Costa 49-46 scorecard was wrong in so many ways. This fight hurt me to my heart. I'm a huge Islam supporter, but I've always loved Dustin. What a fight. Those who were talking about Islam Makhachev should just hide in a blanket for some time. Shh.